Oh, there we go. Hey guys. So yeah, I thought I'd come on live. This is my first live. Um, and I'm just gonna kind of talk a little bit about something that I mentioned on my other videos about time travel. So what a lot of people don't know is that time travel has been going on. I mean, some people are just beginning to know, but I know, if you watch, I mean, I've been a sci-fi buff forever since I was young. My dad was a Trekkie. But we've been watching, if you've been watching supernatural, um, paranormal shows or reading sci-fi forever, you know. Oh gosh, I feel like I need to turn this off. Um, that time travel is, a subject that's been talked about for a very long time. Hang on, let me turn this off. Okay. And so time travel, is something that people have been talking about for a very long time. I think, it goes back like to the 40s, maybe even a little before that. I mean, I know, it's been known in ancient cultures even further back than that. But in modern times, you have the Philadelphia experiment. Excuse me. And the Philadelphia experiment was a military experiment that was done. The purpose was to get um, I'm sorry, to get to get the military enemy to disappear, or to get the military. It was during World War II in the 40s. They wanted to make themselves disappear off of radar. That's how it actually started. So they had a whole lot of top scientists, physicists, technicians, whatever, who were dealing with that kind of stuff to work on um, making themselves disappear off of radar for during the war. This was the 30s, late 30s, whenever the war was in the 40s. My mother was born in the 40s. Parents were. Um, early, mid 40s. Was it 42 or 43 World War II? 40, something like that. So, anyway, when they did that, they actually stumbled across this technology that actually made people not only disappear off of radar, but disappear for real, for real. Yes, they did. And so you could go research the Philadelphia experiment. And then there's another one called the Montauk experiment. It's actually very interesting because it just, the dynamic um, keeps building upon itself. They disappeared from, a particular space time um, continuum, and then when they came back, our space time continuum, they were embedded into the objects that they, were when they started the experiment. So just go read about it. I mean, it's been so long ago. It's the 80s when I first, read about it. Peter Moon does a really good job of. I think he's with. There's another author that he wrote with. Oh my God, my brain cannot think today, so I'm not going to be able to. I'm going to get a little better with YouTube, and I'm going to be writing stuff down, taking good notes before I start talking, because all this stuff is just stuff I've known and been talking about forever. And you know how we have this Minds app now in 2021 where, you can barely recall things. Somebody talks about that too, how they've messed up our memory. And I've known this again for a very long time because I've been having this problem since at least 2016, I think it was, where my memory has just been getting progressively worse. Like I can hardly remember anything, something that they've done. And that's part of this whole um, time space continuum, time travel thing. But anyway, the Philadelphia experiment, and then from there we just continue on with all kinds of stories, folklore, lore, and I have my own stories. I have stories that go back to my childhood, not so much about time travel, but that include phenomena that's related to that. But I will tell the story of when I first started really tripping off of time travel personally. And again, this was somewhere around, I know I'm aging myself when I tell you, but I want you to know that I'm not a newcomer to this. And I've been on these subjects because these topics, it's great to see other people waking up and, expand. And mostly, I have to say, because if you know anything about the like indigo generations and the different generations, indigo, um, um, crystal, I'm actually indigo, early indigo too. Um, but it really, like with each generation, you get more and more, you know, people who are um, a part of this whole, paranormal, supernatural, um, superpower dynamic, have these dynamics in them. And this is another reason why there's been these huge attempts to shut down that aspect. And I don't want to talk about anything. I'm new to YouTube, so I know I've heard from watching different YouTube channels that they will come after you if you start talking about certain things these days. So I'm gonna try to be really, a little careful in my new days, and maybe get deeper into talking about stuff more freely later once I've learned how things work. But you get with each generation, so the crystals and what's happened to the crystals? I don't know why I can't remember it, but those are the new kids that have been born since like 20 the last couple of years. I can't remember what they're called, but you get more and more of these more in numbers. People have these superpowers and these abilities, and that's why they've come out with, I mean, we're a media culture, so that's why you have more shows that deal with this thing. I couldn't believe it, like, about, I mean, I've always watched sci-fi, like I said, but you know within the last, like, what, 10 years, they've just like been, and 10, 9, 8, 7 to 5 years, and now on TV, like, everything is about time travel. Everything, we already know they came out about ETs. I've been telling people, because um, I've been in the education profession for many years, and I've always told my students it was like a joke, that you know uh, I would bet them, like $1 that this was going to be the year of disclosure. Because, I go way back. Going to um, um, MUFON conferences, and just, when the paranormal, when you were fringe, I mean, I know some people still see it as fringe these days, but you were fringe back then when you were um, talking about that kind of stuff. But anyway, so yeah, there are higher numbers with younger kids, which is why they really have targeted younger kids in every generation, through culture, through media, through, education itself, and decreasing, critical thinking, which is not always, I mean, critical thinking is, I'm not saying, actually, critical thinking is important, But the real wake up doesn't happen through thinking. The real wake up happens, I always say the intellect and the mind gets you to the door, and then spirituality or mysticism is a different apparatus. It's not mind. You're dealing with a different apparatus that people are still becoming aware of. They're not even quite aware of, where the mysticism and the spiritual, people talk about the pineal gland all the time. Yes, yes, absolutely. And, it's even deeper than the pineal gland. It's not something that you just drink some herbs and smoke some herbs and do this, and then suddenly you are spiritually awake and enlightened and mystic. It has to do with the heart. It has to do with a number of things. The DNA gets activated through certain types of mechanisms that occur. In ancient Egypt, we had initiations in ancient Asia and India, uh, and um, you know other parts of the Far East. There were different techniques that were done to put people on the path of mysticism. You know, but anyway, the thing about it is with morphogenetics, each time one generation makes a breakthrough in anything, the next generation already has that. They start at that level. And that's why they're able to be so accelerated, because each generation that comes through, they're starting from the level that the previous generation ended, right? And it's in the DNA. That's how, I've been talking about this again for years, decades. Cellular memory. So, yeah, time travel is something that many of us have been doing and not even knowing that we've been doing for so long. We haven't recognized it as such. And then when they began really thematically putting it into movies and films and now TV shows, um, you know, we've seen it as a separate type of dynamic from the one that we've already been a part of. So for a lot of us, it happens in dreams. Oh, okay. I'm gonna let that ring because I don't feel like getting that. Um, and so we haven't even known. We might have thought our time travel was, just a figment of our imagination or some type of dream that we would have dream states and stuff, not recognizing that we've been time traveling. We've been what they call it, dream walking, dream swapping, all kinds of stuff. Okay. But when they sensationalize it on film, uh, we can feel a sense of, we might relate, but we might not recognize it as how we're actually experiencing it, right? But go and read Philadelphia Experiment Montauk. Those of you who haven't, I know many of you probably already have. If you saw a tag for this video, you're probably already on it, into star seeds and all that good stuff. So the type of time travel, okay, so also, you know, the 2012 Mayan predictions about time ending, which is kind of trippy too because the calendars are all off, right? So like the Ethiopian calendar, which is supposed to be a little bit more aligned with true time. Because keep remembering they've added, like, the Gregorian calendar has like done all kind of weird stuff. Leap year is a weird phenomena, right? Which has got like the actual count a little off. But so 2012 was 2012 really 2012 when it occurred. Anyway, the Mayans, that was like a big thing. I remember I was into it. I went to go visit Guatemala and go to the Tikal pyramids And I was really into, researching that prior to 2012. Who was the guy I used to read a lot? Had a good book. I can't remember his name now, but it'll come to me. But 2012 Quetzalcoatl and experience Quetzalcoatl. I'm a mystic. I come from a line of mystics. That's my my text my text tune. Um, and yeah, that was a whole nother dynamic of, looking at the whole time travel phenomena, because once time was up, according to the Mayans, there would be no more time space construct. A lot of us were waiting to see something really dramatic, and it didn't occur, but it did if you were paying attention. Like underneath, I remember some really creepy things, not creepy, but just like, creepy for then, back then. This stuff was even more marginalized than it is now. Like, everybody's woke now, right? So pretty much anything you say, there'll be somebody who can relate to you. You can come out in the open. You don't have to be in the closet talking about it, right? So yeah. Once the whole 2012 dynamic occurred and the consciousness became synced with that, the critical mass, then we started experiencing, because you got to dream all this stuff up together, right? Like you can be in your own world, and some people talk about this all the time, especially if you, well, I won't talk about that, but you could be, you can understand your mysticism and be totally aware of it, but then when you share it with somebody else, like everybody's on, because everybody's projecting their own reality, um, as quantum, mechanics has helped us to understand. And so the whole thing of being in 3D and the matrix is that we all are, you know, tuned in to one particular frequency of, reality that we share, right? And that's what we call reality, the collective shared reality. But it's really not. It's just a particular zone that we've all, from the time we were little, been programmed to, to tune into, like they always talk about, like a radio dial. Like we're all tuned into this channel, and then we get to play this simulation game, this holographic simulation of experiencing a collective reality that we call, it's really, you could call it dominant reality, right? But everybody's in their own zone, experiencing their own reality all the time, but have classically been told that that's just some weirdo stuff that you imagination, right? As though imagination is not real. Again, so that's the third element. That quantum scientists are now becoming the heroes of the day if they're really keeping it real, because they're espousing the truth of what, mystics and religions have said for so many years, you know, and we know that science has become the new religion. So if science doesn't say it, which I have a deep problem with, even though, I've got more than two graduate degrees. Um, I just, the whole and I taught physics at one time, the scientific intellectual route, I've really heretically spent the last decade or so trying to dumb myself down, so that I could move out of the mind, the brain, and the quote unquote mind, which we delegate to the intellect, but really there's a mind that's not up here. So, to progress on the path of, of metaphysics, you've got to transcend, to use one word, but you've got to go beyond the brain. You've got to go beyond the mind, and you have to move into a different apparatus. I coined a long time ago. I don't recall anybody else using this now. They probably do, but this was back in the MySpace days when I used to use the word GNO, When I said, when I wrote, knowledge and to know, not like KNOW. That's an intellectual brain mental thing, but GNO, like gnosis, okay, from the Gnostics. That's a knowing that as an oracle, it goes into your whole cellular, DNA, your cellular memory. So this comes from beyond just your limited brain. It's in a different apparatus, right? So let's see. Well, back to time travel. So, oh, and I was going to say some of the stuff I was seeing. I remember during 2012, being able to see crystal DNA, like, how crystals are made and how they develop. I was seeing that in people's DNA because I used to, just have like, these visionary, um, it's like I would go into this visionary state where I would see outside of the three-dimensional reality. So, every year every year really from my life, if I really pay attention, you know, there's been these stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks of new abilities and new developments, and the only thing keeping you from it has been the distractions, what they're trying to get you to pay attention to that's not you, which is why they're in a state of desperation right now, of course, because we're waking up like crazy and we're interacting with galactic feeds, with solar feeds, with all kind of, and this is nothing new. If you're on it, you may forget. I forget daily, and I'm oracle energy, but you just start seeing it more and more. The kids already have it. Because you get conditioned out of it as you get older and older, and you get more and more invested in the narrative of the dominant reality or matrix. Or when there's shocks that get everybody, you know again, which is why they use their machines to keep us mind zapped, I call it, or distracted, or their fake crises, emergencies. We learned that from David Icke. Um, but it's just something that can't be stopped. It can only be stopped by us. And you've heard this a million times. The way they do that is through false realities or false flags and distractions, right? That coerce us to give our own power away. Consent to have our power taken from us. Um, so time travel. Okay, so let me tell you a story about time travel that I a while ago. Gosh, this was like, again, I'm always dating myself, but I don't care because if I'm old, I look good, right? I always say that. But so this was like early 2000s. I want to say like 2003, 2003. 2003, 2004, something like that. Maybe 2002. I don't know. I lose track. Again, time. It doesn't exist. It's not real, right? But I was in Berlin visiting my sister, and I had taken a book to read, because I went to visit her during the summer, and the book, I wasn't all that into novels, at least not at that time. I go through different phases, but this was this book was on parallel universes or something like that. It's like parallel universes, parallel reality, and I remember driving down the Autobahn going like, my sister was driving, and back then it was the Smart Car was owned by Mercedes Benz. They didn't have no, it wasn't they hadn't approved it for the states. So it's like, oh my god! But we were in this little tiny car. We were going to a film festival, driving from Berlin to Dusseldorf, and I was reading my book, and yeah, while she was driving like 120, not 120, maybe like 100, and which is, kind of conducive to, what I'm talking about, what the experience was. We, something I got a download, I guess you could say, about parallel universes. And again, it wasn't the first time I had read parallel universe theory, but something just downloaded in me and it clicked. And I remember telling my sister a little bit about it. I kind of can't even remember what the whole thing was, but I just remember it was. And interestingly, I mean, if you do research on Germany, and at this time I was going to different um, like conferences and stuff. Although I didn't go to one that summer in Germany, I wish I had. But Germans as a culture have really been onto this kind of phenomena for a long time as well. So has Japan. I was in Japan in 2019. And when you look at the history of Japan, and I mean, we know China, we know Mexico, we know Russia, has been into, paranormal, studies and stuff for a while. But yeah, so sometimes it has to do with the land you're walking on, the molecules in the air of the destination, the location, the locale that imbues you with a lot of this, these uploads or downloads. But not shortly after that, and man, I got to start doing my research before I come on. But YouTube's new for me. Um, my sister and I, we had, oh, I know, I can always track the date for this because it happened right before Da Vinci Code, the second Da Vinci Code series came out, which was called, was it Angels and Demons? But in that, I haven't seen that show. I need to go watch that movie again. But it talks about a particle accelerator, I think is the name they actually call it. And I remember at the time, it was maybe about a couple months before that movie came out or something like that. I was talking to I had called my sister. She was actually she was in London this time, and I was at home, and I called her because I had a dream, because our family's notorious for our dream, for dreams, and that's like kind of that's my, like, one of my uh it's always been one of my modalities for getting a lot of downloads, like really deep downloads. So I called her and I said, "Oh my God, I had this crazy dream, and it was about this machine, and um, it was just really weird. I don't know what to call it." And I was trying to explain it to her. I was like, "But it was like a time travel machine, and you sat in this chair, and I'm sure I wrote about this on MySpace, because MySpace was popping back then. I had like thousands of blogs, so much so that we tried to download them all, and my sister put them in a like a folder, because we were gonna, like, this is back in like 2004. We were gonna make like a MySpace blog book, but we never got around to it. And then of course MySpace got rid of everybody's blogs, just straight up stole them, right? And I don't know what I did over the years with that notebook. Can't find it. Maybe it'll pop up one day. But I remember writing about it and um, describing this like time travel machine that was in my dream. And then it was like something, like a weird aspect of it, that I didn't call it a particle accelerator because I didn't know. I think I might have used the word accelerator though. I don't know. It was so long ago. But I described the whole phenomena to her in my dream, and how I sat in the chair and, time traveled and everything. And then she told me a dream that she had. Actually, she told my aunt, and my aunt told me. And no, she told my aunt, Yeah, my aunt told me, and that was why I called her to tell her about my dream. So then she told me about her dream that she had had in London, where they were after her because she had figured out in her dream how to time travel, but she could only go backwards, and they wouldn't let her go forward. Like, she could only go so far, and then she got blocked. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, why are we both dreaming about time? Because we weren't like particularly into time travel. This was just stuff that was cropping up out of nowhere. But later you find out that it was also correlating with a lot of the stuff they were doing. So so we thought that was kind of trippy. She described that they were the people. It was some woman. She could see like the characters in her dream, that she says hers wasn't really 100% like a dream. It was more like a what is it, theta or whatever type of, like, she was just like laying down and she wasn't like sleep all the way. I think that's how she said it. And I'm gonna have to get her on, when I do a podcast, and have her tell the story. But then later that year, that Da Vinci Code Part 2 movie came out, and they and I was like, everything they're talking about in this is how I would describe it. And I still don't even remember, but it was something about like a particle accelerator or something like that. I still don't even remember. I have to go back and watch that movie. But I remember seeing that, and I was like, oh my God, that's the technology that was in my dream. So that was way back then. Now, fast forward however many years, and I literally started having again dreams where I was time traveling, like all the time, just time traveling. um and what did that look like? I mean, it would just be different episodes, and again, this is before it was a really big theme on TV or whatever, or on shows or in film. So then you started seeing more and more stuff. And then fast forward to today. Well, let's go back to about 5 or 6 years ago. There were several movies that first really started seriously, downloading this stuff. I remember that movie. What's that movie with Eve? Eve. Was that the name of it? That movie with Scarlett, was it Scarlett Johansson or whatever? I don't keep up with all these people. But it was the same year that came out. There was another one about, I want to say George Clooney, but I don't know. I have to, like I said, I have to do better at writing stuff down because I just be freestyling these days. Um, and trust me, I'm a writer, so it's not like, and a researcher for a good 30 years. So it's not like I don't know, but I'm just not interested in all that stuff anymore. Like these days, you're gonna have to feel what people are saying. If you're not feeling it, then like all this got to prove it, and you could go do that yourself to satisfy your intellect. But I have been a serial intellectual. Trust me, I have, and I'm just over it. I'm over it. But I do realize that there is a majority of people that are still, worshiping science and the intellect and rational, linear thought and all that. So I still have, a foot and a half in that. But the point was that in that film, they really show, because what started happening is, which is wonderful about film, which I've also had a background in, the magic of film is that when you have images projected, again, it awakens certain things in your, you get that projection. And so you have something that you can that your imagination can bounce off of and then begin to expand, and it can actually create like shifts, awakening shifts. Movies have always been huge shifts. Books and movies always, back in the day, from my early years, were part of what helped me to shift. um Okay, so time travel through history, the military, Philadelphia experiment, 2012, and other things in between that, movies, films, um, sci-fi, and now, let's say within the last 5 years, everything on TV. We can't go a season without three, four, five shows all talking about. I just watched Loki on, the Marvel. Oh my God, that was like amazing. But you guys know the franchises, Marvel and all of them have been talking about this as a theme because it's comic book stuff too, right? That's where a lot of other people learned about it. A lot of, especially young, not young anymore, but a lot of guys learned through comic books. So the reality of it now is that we are time traveling constantly. Um, and some of us are aware, some of us are not. Um, the Mandela experiment, I recall, oh, I wish I could find him. I'm gonna have to go on Facebook and try to find him. I defriended him, but there was this Facebook friend I had that, if he ever sees this, it's gonna be a little embarrassing because I'm gonna say, like, I defriended him because he used to flirt a lot, right? And I don't have time for all that. And but he was deep. He was real deep, but he was just annoying because he used to flirt a lot. And I was like, I don't have time for that. And it was not, it wasn't clicking. It wasn't clicking. So, but what we did have in common is we used to have like again, so you have like, mind links with people, or you have, you know, you know, and he was an Aries too. And I remember, and I have Aries North Node and a lot of Aries on my chart. And Aries have a very interesting paranormal dynamic. All fire signs do, in my opinion. All signs do. All signs do. I can go into that. I'm not saying that fire signs are more, metaphysical than others, but or gifted. But anyway, we had some kind of link where we would feel stuff and then post it on Facebook the next day. And both of us would be like, oh my God. And so we used to, talked to him a few times on the phone. And, because I used to do a lot of that again back in that 20, really like 2011, but 2013 to 2017, it was like on and popping. That's before they caught up with what they were going to have to do to shut everybody down. So people were just like having random wake ups, and then they were, using the technology to steal it off from us and put it in movies to make us think that we were just, like we were writing the movies with our real lives, and they were taking it from us from Facebook and MySpace, and making movies out of it. It was hot in here. So yeah, I remember it was, oh, I know I have this written down somewhere around 2016 or something, where was it 2016, 2015, 2014, maybe 2014, maybe 2013, I don't know, where we woke up one day and it was like something just happened. I remember the dream I had. I was on a ship, and I learned dream decoding, learned it and forgot it. Way back when I really studied it a lot, like the different symbols and stuff. So like ships, like you can dream that you're on a boat, a ship, a cruise, like a huge cruise, and or that there's an airplane, a big jumbo jet chasing you, and those are like that. Those are like your brain will change the symbols into something that you recognize a little more. But that could be a extra, a UFO, or a ship, a real craft, a flying craft. And I remember I had just dreamed about being on this huge ship, and it was like a very unusual dream. I remember we stopped off somewhere, and um, anyway, the details in the interpretation of it, it was that um, we were floating. We weren't, we had left, you know the reality that we knew, and And again, another thing is, I used to be into something. I will give her a shout out because she was like bomb. I don't know where she is these days or what's going on, but her name is Ashiana Dean, and it was called Keylontic Science. She wrote a book called Voyagers. If you ever get a chance to get your hands on that, Voyagers was awesome. I should have got some water because I'm starting to get dehydrated. No, I don't even see what the time is. What is the time? Oh, 40 minutes. Oh my Lord. Okay, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna wrap this up. So, yeah, Ashiana Dean, Keylontic Science was deep. So I was kind of, my kids used to call it a cult, that I was in a cult. And it was kind of a cult, and I don't have no problems with cults. Only problem is if you get stuck in, stay in them too long, but you get a lot of real information from cult is just shortened word version of culture. And you can learn a lot of stuff that happens every time you go into some type of deep research of anything, and that you immerse yourself in, right? So she had talked about the world, this holographic reality, like being destroyed way back in, like, oh my goodness, that was like 2000, and I don't know. You'd have to research it. 6, 7, I don't know. It was a while back. Um, I used to trip off of Ike way before anybody knew about him. I'll tell you how far back I go with Ike, David Ike, is Credo Mutwa. I remember when he introduced Credo Mutwa, and I used to go to the Bodhi tree out here in West Hollywood, which they got rid of a while back. I used to go to the Bodhi tree and get, that was like my Friday nights, and I got a videotape of Credo Mutwa that I remember bringing home and showing like my family, and so that's when they were still selling videotapes. That's how far I go back with Ike. And it was a video game of, I think, videotape, VHS, um, of him, I think, talking to Credo Mutwa. And yeah, yeah. Because I used to, get David Icke's books every time they came out. Every time he was putting out books like every freaking 6 months or whatever. And he used to have speakers, really good speakers at the Buddy Tree. But anyway, um, so time travel is something that we're all doing. It's something we've been doing. Not when I say all, most of you who are probably watching this who have any interest in it. Um, and we're doing it now, but it's a different kind of way. I know I was talking about Homeboy on Facebook. We woke up that morning and I was like, nah, something's not right. Like this is not like, like the world is not the same. And I just had that dream about floating through space through this ship. And everybody, a whole bunch of people on. I used to have this recurring dream actually of contact, but this was on a ship. And I remember him being the only person that was like, I know exactly what you're talking about. And he wasn't doing that just to flirt with me. He really, was connected or tuned in. And it was maybe about 3 years later that the whole Mandela thing started happening, and people were like, having different experiences of reality. But I feel like it started right after I had and it was literally January 1st, whatever year that was. I gotta try to look him up. I can't even remember his name, but I'm sure we have some of the same friends on Facebook. Um, so time travel. It's not as fancy smancy as they make it. It's actually happening. You've been doing it. You just have to tune into how you do it. And you have to like see it from a different reference that's not Hollywood or, you know, even the ones that have been described to you by um, even quantum physicists now. Like they're starting to steer the narrative in a way that makes it more of a collective narrative. and that's fine. But sometimes, as I have experienced throughout my lifetime, seeking validation for my mysticism, um, when I got it from other people who were different, when I got stories from other people who were different than me, I would sort of zone in and categorize myself the same way that their perspective explained it. And then I would get a little lost sometimes, like, what I'm saying? So it would be streamlined, instead of, which is fine, but you still, you don't want to get lost in that, because then you'll be looking for the signs that other people have defined for you, rather than recognizing and acknowledging your own subjective experience of it, which is more valid for you. Um, and then together we create a an objective experience. We create the objective experience. It's all subjective. Remember, quantum physicists have taught us that it's all subjective. That's all that's happening in the world. In reality is subjective reality. And then what we call reality, which is dominant reality, is just that streamlined objective experience that we're all having in this simulation. So keep in mind that when you begin, and this also taps into the whole concept of faith. When you begin to believe in your own experiences and validate them, then it opens up a whole new world for you. But they taught us to do the opposite, to disbelieve in your imagination, to disbelieve in your subjective experiences. We teach that to children. Um, That's just your imagination. You're making that up. Blah 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 blah. Blah. There's another show I've just been watching on TV called, I think it's on Amazon, called Evil. It's really good. I like that. Um, just from the point of view of, I mean, well, I don't want to say anything bad about it, but I like it. There's certain aspects I don't like. A lot of these shows are very corny, the way that they're written sometimes. But the concepts and ideas and the principles, can be like really, really good. And the perspective of subjective reality. What am I experiencing? Is this just my imagination? Psychology is gonna be a big part, has been a big part, and will continue um, to be a big part in the way that we view this awakening. And this is all headed toward the Aquarian age, where we're going to be responsible for, this is what they don't want us to wake up to. We're going to be responsible for coding, you know, the dominant reality. They want to continue to control that. That's what they've always done. They want to control it and streamline us into a video game. What's it called? VHR, VCR? What's it called? Virtual reality, VR construct, with nanobots that they can program. And they'll make it very, they'll make it very attractive for us, you're too, they're already doing that with the culture of wanting to be perfect, have perfect, I love filters. I'm a filter junkie. The perfect body, the perfect face, the perfect this, the perfect that. Hey, you don't have to work so hard. We'll create it. We'll let you sculpt it. We'll let you code it. And then you can exist. And they had a movie about that too. What was that called? Not Virtuosity. It was a movie with oh gosh, what's his name? Demi Moore's ex-husband, first husband. There's a movie that he was in way back. I used to show it to my students, and yeah, they were living in a virtual, like, they would put their like VR on. And VR, there was a really good movie that Oliver Stone did called Wild Palms. Man, that was the like early 90s. Again, I had a VHS set of that. I used to show that a lot to people back in the 90s, early 90s, um, about, you know, well, it wasn't really about virtual reality, but I remember there's that one scene where that guy had his goggles on, or what now we know as, what do you guys call them? See, I don't even know. I'm so square. I know my son has them, the VR thing, but yeah, And then if you would have talked to millennials and late indigos, even 5 years ago, they would have told you that they were down. What was it, Avatar? After they made Avatar, um, my daughter's best friend uh, was, well, I don't need to tell all that story. The guy who did Avatar, James Cameron, she used to hang out at his house, but when he was working on Avatar, and that was all about you know getting excited about becoming sub by a sub biological being, becoming a hybrid, bio um, AI hybrid. So they've been working on this for a long time. All right, so I've gotten way off topic. I just wanted to break in. I wanted to pop my live YouTube cherry and just come on, even though there's nobody here. But it's okay. I'm just telling my stories. I'm not looking for a million likes and follows. I'm just ready to, I feel like it's safe in the water, even though it probably may not. It's safe, period. It's safe, period. It's safe when you say it's safe. How about that? But I'm so proud of everybody. I'm really proud of humanity. I talk a lot of crap and about, how I for so many years I was like banging really hard from that spiritual metaphysical perspective. Before that it was something else. I was a vegan back in the 80s, vegetarian back in the 80s, and I always tell people how I always I try to when I would do my lectures I would encourage people to believe in their power to change things. And I would tell them how just by being a vegetarian, when there was no tofu, no jamba juice, no, nothing. I mean, nobody knew what tofu was, and you got criticized for being a vegetarian. Just one little generation of that away, and now I can walk into, a vegan restaurant wherever I go and eat this delicious food that didn't exist just 30 years ago. So, and it's accelerated now, so the critical mass, I'm so proud. And I'm proud of the millennials, and I'm proud of the younger people because they're a big part of, why, and all those pioneers who've written books and who labored and who risked, being called crazies, me included. I'm so proud that we're at a point now where people are awake enough to, where we can talk about this stuff. We can come out the closet, and it's even considered cool. Now, the problem now is you got too many nuts. I'm sorry, I should call them nuts, but too many people out the closet trying to throw their, I did another video on, I've been talking a lot about entities and demon possession or jinn or whatever you want to call them, archons, extraterrestrials. I have, abduction experience, abduction stories that I'll get to in the future, possibly. But, you got so many people now talking about metaphysics that really don't know what they're talking about 100%. And that's okay. But, it's like anything. You really don't want to be responsible karmically for misleading people with a whole bunch of BS just because you want to be seen and you want likes and you want to be popular and stuff like that. Like, that's not what's up. Like, you know what I'm saying? So that part of it is getting a little annoying. But just the fact that people now can have a conversation about things that are not groupthink designed is really nice. So, looking forward to more wake ups and what the future brings. But okay, I guess you guys will see this at some point. Somebody will see it at some point. And you guys take care. Thanks. Peace. Oh gosh, how do I turn this off? I have to put my glasses on. Okay, in stream. Yeah.